The Reverend Bill Sinkford that we heard from a minute ago was the president of our Unitarian Universalist Association from 2001 to 2009. He said repeatedly that the main goal of his time of leadership was to maintain this vocabulary of reverence within our faith community. The reading that we heard was his account of realizing a deep need for such language. It's important to be clear from the beginning of this conversation, though, that language of reverence does not necessarily mean Christian language, though it can. It's not necessarily God language. It's answering clearly and concisely what for you is holy, precious, and true. What for you specifically and authentically is holy, precious, and true. There come times in our lives when we need to grab a hold of something fast, when the world seems to shake and the structures that we trusted for decades seem to crack up, and we need solid ground. I suspect that most of us have had those moments, and I know you made it through because we're sitting here together today. So as I explore a few different languages of reverence this morning, I invite you to think back to those times that shook you. Think back not just to the despair, but remember also the glimmers of hope and meaning that got you through. Was there a word or idea that you could hang on to in the midst of that chaos? In addition to finding our own solid ground, another reason for developing our language of reverence is to share with others. It seems that since the 1960s, liberally minded people have been less and less able to speak authentically about faith and values. Perhaps our beliefs are too complicated to articulate quickly. Perhaps we're frightened of the power that's held there. Whatever the reason, we cannot afford to cede moral authority to the loudest voice in the room. Our language of reverence matters too. Whether it's for soothing yourself or for speaking to city council, we each have to find a handful of words that grounds us. So today I thought I'd share a few examples of languages of reverence as I invite you to cultivate your own. As Celia reminded us, yesterday was Gandhi's birthday, Gandhi Jayanti. It's a celebration of his birthday. It's one of 3 Indian national holidays. So the cornerstone of Gandhi's language of reverence was the word satyagraha. It may sound familiar from our new Director of Religious Education, Satya. He came up with satyagraha, the word, in 1906. He didn't exactly create it, but it's a combination of 2 different Sanskrit words. And combining words like that in Sanskrit is a common grammatical structure. You can put together 2 words to get into a deeper meaning. So satya means truth, and agraha means insistence or holding on to. So the simplest translation would be firmly holding on to the truth. It's not quite that simple, though. Translation is always messy business. Satya means more than just being factually true. It's also what is real as opposed to what is non-existent. And satya also means what is good as opposed to what is evil or bad. Satyagraha then means much more than holding on to what's true factually. Satyagraha is a faith commitment. It's an alignment of oneself with what is factually true, what's actually real, and the goodness in the world. Now, we know that an unyielding commitment to the truth can be really dangerous. It's fundamentalism, and that's probably not something that we would support as UUs. Gandhi wasn't a stubborn guy, though. He was very careful about his pathway for discerning truth. One was to seek the truth in love, one of his methods, and that should sound familiar to us because we say it every Sunday, right? Curiosity, studying, learning, open-mindedness, discernment, critical thinking, all of that gets tempered by love. Seek the truth in love. Gandhi said the second part to finding the truth depends on cultivating nonviolence of mind. It's not just about being nice, though. It's about clarity. The slightest bit of animosity toward another clouds our vision. It's hard to understand what our opponents are talking about if we're angry at them. So cultivating mental nonviolence is a necessary part of truth-seeking. And finally, Gandhi's third requirement for seeking the truth was rigorous self-scrutiny. He was continuously challenging his body and his mind to be sure his interpretations were pure. His intentions were pure, He had to make sure that he was seeking truth and not his own comfort, which is sometimes very hard to tell the difference between. Determining what's true requires compassionate study. It requires nonviolence of mind. It requires self-scrutiny. And once the truth has been found, the followers of Satyagraha then refuse to cooperate with untruth in any way. That's how you hold on to the truth and demonstrate it to others, by refusing to cooperate with its opposite. It means holding on to truth even when it's unconventional and even when it means breaking unjust laws. It's probably not a word or vocabulary that fits for you. I wanted to share it today, though, because it provides a sort of scaffolding of words and ideas that you can build an idea of reverence around. In celebrating heroes of the past, we often remember their great power rather than the risk or sacrifices they made. He and a multitude of Indians seeking liberation from British rule risked tremendous violence. Gandhi famously said, "They may torture my body, break my bones, even kill me. Then they will have my dead body, but not my obedience." Satyagraha, this understanding of living truth, offered tremendous courage in the face of danger. It doesn't roll off the tip of our tongues as you use, and most of us don't come from a Hindu background, though some do. So we are called to search for language that inspires us. In describing UU faith, a lot of us turn to the 7 principles or the 6 sources. The documents are well written and kind of poetic, but they don't do a great job at encapsulating, at least for me, what's holy, precious, or sacred. A better place to look might be at our hymns, like Joanne was hinting at. So what hymns stir your spirit when you sing them? I know that Blue Boat Home is one of our most popular hymns. Beyond the melody, the whimsical poetry of the lyrics touches people in a really special way. Most of you know the song. It uses the metaphor of a boat making its way through the universe as a metaphor for the earth. It reminds us that we're all passengers on this fragile earth together, and that we are all on a great big journey together. The whimsical description of space and the universe, while thinking of Earth as a little tiny boat, somehow bridges together our very small lives with the vastness of space. So if the song resonates with you, you might try invoking those images of journeying through space together. Not just when we sing it, but when you need some perspective or inspiration. Perhaps the mystery of the journey or the blue boat home of this magnificent earth are part of your language of reverence. One of my favorite hymns, we don't sing it very often, but it's What Wondrous Love. Like a lot of our hymns, What Wondrous Love was adapted from a very traditional Christian hymn. The original hymn spoke of the sacrifices of Jesus that offered salvation to humanity. In our UU hymnal, though, we removed the references of Jesus or even God and replaced it all with love. This singular focus of the hymn is love. It says, "What wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss, that takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down beneath my sorrow's ground, friends to me gathered round, O my soul. To love and to all friends I would sing, to love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks until the end I will sing." It's a stunning hymn. It reminds us that love itself is language of reverence. Not romantic love per se, but love that sustains us, that bridges human difference. Love that seems at times to come from something bigger than we know. It's a suitable object of our devotion. We all have our favorite pieces of a worship service, but I really encourage you to pay attention to those songs that we sing. Melissa does a great job of balancing, introducing new hymns and repeating ones that we know and love. And part of that repetition isn't just because they get easier to sing. It's also to let those words and those ideas sink in, to offer those concepts to sustain us in hard times. So pay attention when those songs pop up that you really, really enjoy. Now, it wouldn't be fair of me to encourage you to develop your own language of reverence without unpacking some of my own. You may have noticed a couple of years ago, I settled into a pattern for the way I start prayers at Tapestry. I typically say, "Spirit of life, God of many names, mystery beyond naming." That formula is not an accident. I didn't come up with those phrases. I carefully borrowed them from different ways of introducing prayer. I chose them because the combination is something that I can invoke with authenticity. Spirit of life is a phrase that's used really widely in Unitarian Universalism. It was popularized by a hymn by Carolyn McDade by that name as the title, Spirit of Life. It's vague, to be sure, and I imagine it means different things to different people. To me, it conjures up the tremendous, mysterious powers of life on our earth. The unfolding process of evolution, the precise and delicate balance of atmosphere that makes life on this planet possible. Spirit of life offers a deep reassurance that after I am gone, and maybe even after we humans are gone, that life will persist here. On a small scale, life is delicate and a precious thing. On a larger scale, it is tremendously powerful. Invoking the spirit of life reminds me of our interconnectedness, our responsibility, and the power that sustains us. God of many names. Here, I write God with a lowercase g because it's not a proper name. Of course, you don't know that because you don't see my script, but I am always careful to pay attention to how I write it. That phrase, God of many names, helps me remind me that We're part of a particular religious tradition. It also gives me a sense of connection to people around the world and throughout time. When life is difficult or when it's amazing, it's good to remember that we are in good company with other seekers, with the faithful, with wanderers, with doubters, who have seen and named the sacred in innumerable ways. God of many names. And finally, mystery beyond naming. Mystery here is with a capital M. Mystery beyond naming reminds me of the awe-inspiring, great big grandeur of the Pacific Ocean, and the delicacy of a hummingbird, and the powerful resonance of human love, and the fact that all this goodness here, now, is part of this life. It makes almost anything possible. And at the same time reminds me that there's so much already to be grateful for. Spirit of life, God of many names, mystery beyond naming. That's some of my language of reverence that I use here at Tapestry. More recently, I've found comfort and grounding in Buddhist practices, in the silence and stillness that's available there. The version of Buddhism that I'm drawn to doesn't invoke deities or promises of nirvana so much. What it offers is an opportunity to let go of exhausting experiences of grasping and seeking and craving and clinging and longing and wanting. You know, that unquenchable sense of if only that nags us. Buddhist practices offer a pathway to letting go. It's difficult to put language of reverence to a sense of space, of calmness, or even nothing. So in my personal language of reverence, I've been toying with the idea of taking refuge in the Buddha. The word Buddha actually means awakened one or enlightened one, and it's said that we all have access and possibility of that Buddha nature, that awakening. We all have within us the capacity to be awake, to be at peace in the world. So I found refuge in that possibility. So I asked you earlier about those moments in life when you most needed help or reassurance. You might also turn to those moments of profound joy or gratitude or wonder. When you bring those to mind, what are some of the words that come to you? And I know it's really, really scary to speak authentically about our faith. It's incredibly private. It's not a quantifiable reality, so it feels like you can't prove it to other people when you talk about it. Still, there's great value in putting some words to those ideas and feelings, even if just for ourselves. So what for you is holy, precious, and sacred? I hope each of you experiences the comfort and the joy of answering that question with at least a few words. Amen.